Well, hello. I want to talk about this game and a few others. So, this is Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark, a game which, if you know anything about it, you probably know that it's basically Final Fantasy Tactics. Since Square refuses to make Final Fantasy Tactics, this studio has made this game. And it's a lot like it. In fact, too much like Final Fantasy Tactics. And playing over this game this weekend, it really made me realize a lot of things. Not all of them positive. In fact, not most of them positive. So, at the risk of going a little hard against the developers of this game, who, by the way, clearly put a lot of love into their labor, I cannot imagine that making a strategy game is easy. um, so here's what happened. There's kind of a lot to talk through before I get to like what I really want to say in the first place, but here's the gist of it. So I came home Friday. I bought Final Fantasy VII Remake, played it for about an hour, and realized that I don't feel a lot of urgency to play that game. Basically, that first hour was what I needed. So I'm going to get back to it, of course, but I don't feel the need to play it right away. So I started kind of going through like older games, and I bought this game. Let's see, I have to rattle my memory a little bit for this. It wasn't when the game released. I think it was actually quite late, like maybe let's call it 9 months after release. And basically played it that first weekend and got to, well, I'll just show you on the map because it's not very far away. Basically, I got here, and then the next story mission would have been here. But every time I was trying to do this story mission, I was just getting my ass kicked. So I thought, okay, well, if it's like Final Fantasy Tactics, then I probably need to do a fair amount of grinding. So I thought, no problem. I'll even recruit some extra party members and build them up from the bottom, just to have some extra peeps in my party who can take on the different classes that I'm going to be coming across. I would say, I don't really know how long this game is. Final Fantasy Tactics is a pretty long game. Overlong, I would say. But you certainly get a lot of content. If this game is aiming for the same amount of story and content, then I would say that I'm about a third or maybe just past a third of the way through, right? So, just to kind of show you, you start here and you make your way across the map. You go to the temples. Where's the first temple? First temple's around here, I guess. There's the second temple. And then I'm trying to get to the third temple. I thought it would be here. Turns out it's over here. The desert, you have to go across this bay to get to the desert temple. Even though geographically you were really fucking close to it when you started the game. And here's where it really... So here's what I realized. I'm not having fun with the game. I've thought about toning down difficulty. I did turn the difficulty up from normal. I believe there's 5 difficulties. So you start in normal in the middle, and you can go up or down. So I went 1 up. I play a lot of strategy games. I've certainly played Final Fantasy Tactics. So I thought, what the hell? Let's get a little challenge, right? So far, I haven't been super challenged. I'm talking about up until this weekend. Like, I definitely had to retry some missions, and there's a lot of little nuance to learn. But I wasn't exactly feeling like I'd hit a brick wall. And at this point, I didn't even remember those brick walls from Final Fantasy Tactics. I remember them now. But basically, I just got to a point where the game was too hard to progress, and I was happy to go and kill some time grinding. So what happened this weekend when I was looking at my back catalog is I remembered this game, and I remembered that I progressed pretty quickly through the first third of this game and then hit that wall, and that I had just kind of been like randomly grinding for a battle or two whenever I had a few minutes in between games, and that this had actually been going on for a couple of months. Not like I was playing every day, but I would say over the period of a couple months I was grinding this game. So I thought, oh gosh, well, I'm probably about ready to continue the story, right? So this is where I was grinding, because this is about the level I was at. So then I decided to progress, right? So I come all the way around here, I do the mission here, and then I start to get a little scared because I was actually kind of walking through the enemies pretty easily. So I was like, ugh, I might have over leveled. That's not good. Well, not to worry. So then I got some side content, which I was happy to do. I don't remember Tactics ever really offering anything like that. So I came and took out the bandits and opened up this road, which doesn't really matter because it's not like there's random encounters in the game. But you know, it does make it a little easier to traverse. And by the way, I'm not sure how much bigger this map is going to get. I'm guessing I'm going to go over here at some point. But this might be it. So this game might actually be quite a bit shorter than Tactics. Okay, now here's the moment of truth for this game. So at first I'm like worried that I'm over leveled here. And then I keep going. The next mission goes pretty easily, but not like cakewalk. So I'm like, okay, it looks like I was just about right. You know, maybe the game is like matching my level or something. So not to worry, the challenge seems to be A-okay. Then I get over here. Remember, I thought the temple was going to be over here. This is the third of, I think, I don't even know. It's been so fucking long since I played the beginning of the story that I don't really know how many temples there are going to be anymore. I'm on this pilgrimage. I gotta hit up all the temples. This is the third temple. I've done 2. Thought the temple was going to be over here. It's not. Here is a village where you meet a guy, a moth to be exact, who tells you, oh yeah, some ruffians flooded the way to the desert palace, so we can't get to it. So you have to go to the cave and blow up the cavern to unflood the passage. Be careful, there's scary monsters, right? So I'm like, yeah, so I get to the cave. There's a bunch of scary monsters. I fight through, and then I get to the real cave, and now it's a boss encounter. It's like, okay, I didn't really think it's definitely the biggest boss I've fought so far. And it's kind of the way bosses are in games like this. There's generally some kind of gimmick. I'm fighting the boss. It's very annoying because it keeps spawning other enemies. It's got a ton of HP. I can barely hit it. I can't hit it every turn. It's spawning enemies. It also spawns like the real boss halfway into the battle, which is, a spongier version of what I thought was the boss. And then you beat it. I beat it my first try, but it just took forever. That battle must have been like an hour and a half. I wasn't especially prepared for the battle, since I didn't know there was a boss encounter coming up. So I was like, okay, I guess that was my fault for not being, fully maxed out at any given moment. Then we set the explosive. Then we have to come back here. There's another enemy encounter. This time I have to run away from a bunch of enemies. I have 12 turns to do it. But I'm like, I killed the first 3. And then I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can wipe the floor with these guys. Maybe I'm having a cakewalk mission right now. Then it starts spawning more enemies. And it's more the same. It's not like a new enemy type. So I'm like, alright, great. Let's just run away. So then I have an enemy encounter. Then the bomb blows up and opens up the path. And now I have 2 more fights before I get to the fucking temple, which I thought was back here. Right? And I'm just so tired of this game now. And I'm sure some people are fine with this and think nothing of it. That's fine. But I guess I'm kind of having like PTSD of another game that I finished recently, which also just took way too long. That was Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, or as it's actually called, it's Castlevania Symphony of the Night 2. That's basically what that game is. Again, similar story. In this case, Konami won't make any games, much less Castlevania games. So these guys, including people that have worked on Castlevania before, made Bloodstained. Again, a very what would you call it? Very loyal adaptation. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, both of these games are so weird to me because I started playing them both almost as a no-brainer. Like, back then I would have said, oh yeah, I'm excited to play this game. I realize now that I wasn't actually excited to play the games. I just thought I was getting a very specific experience that I haven't had in a long time. I guess another point of comparison, if somebody made... This is probably what people felt when Metroid Fusion was coming out, right? We all thought it was going to be Super Metroid 2. And it turned out to be very different. That game is more of an evolution. But looking back, I'm still more grateful for that game than I am for this game or Bloodstained. And I guess the reason is that both of these games have made me realize... well, first of all, they've charmed me and made me think at the beginning, yes, not only is this exactly what I wanted, but I actually did want that thing. And what they've made me realize is that these genres are so unexplored that all the advancement and evolution that would have come in the intervening years hasn't happened. And so these games that are throwbacks, like identical copies almost of those older games, feel so dated and clunky and frankly just like punishing to play. And it really highlights the difference in the gaming environment today as opposed to 20 years ago, when actually, both of those games were coming out. I think Symphony of the Night was a little earlier. Might have been like 95 or 6. But a couple years doesn't really make that big a difference. I'm pretty sure Tactics was like 97. So not a huge difference in time. Same console, comparable eras. And then we're getting both of these remakes kind of around the same time. Same console, PS4. They're obviously, available on different platforms now. Things are just different. But just the idea that it's kind of like, it's also, I'm going to bring up a lot of games in this conversation, by the way. It's kind of like how Red Dead 2 just felt so long and overdone that it's kind of like, bro, I didn't want you to do what you did. I wanted you to do what I wanted you to do. So, like, certainly in terms of grinding, the lack of like direction as to what to do, more like in Bloodstained, because this game is pretty linear. The simplicity of the story, like, and this game even features like more character cards, so that when they're going through dialogue, you actually get a few different options. But it's still basically like sprites moving on a battle map with very simple animations, and then you get the dialogue card for the character, but there's no dynamic story or anything. I mean, God, even Final Fantasy Tactics occasionally had some cutscenes thrown in there to excite you, But this game doesn't bring a whole lot to the table. Like, the story is not particularly interesting. It's a very like by the numbers RPG story. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not anything to get excited about. The combat, and that's the weird thing. It's like I can't say nothing in this game is stale. It's all been improved a little bit, but not enough to like really make a difference. Like, this game has crafting, right? So you can craft these things. And to me, like, the genius of crafting in a game is the possibility that you may not get something. Like, if you don't find the ingredients or the recipe, you could go the whole game without using an item, which somebody might find really easily. At least crafting related to like random drops, right? Something like The Last of Us is a little more scripted. But in this game, like, I might never get an ingredient if it's a random drop. I can't buy them from shops. Yeah, let's get into that. So as you can see right here at the top, I can make toad boots. I already own 14. I only have 12 party members. In order to make toad boots, I need one sinuidal fruit, and I have one. I need 2 snakebite oils, of which I have 123. I own one of the ingredients for this. I need 2 of the other, of which I have 92. Okay, Impala boots. Let's go to the Wayfarer boots. Earlier in the game, when I first started my 2 months of grinding, was when I was starting to realize that these boots were pretty useful. I only had 2. Until this weekend, I had 3. Now I have 16. Okay, so randomized drops, or how does it work? I don't know where to find anything for this recipe. I don't know what it is. I don't have a clue as to where to find the recipe. I don't have a clue what the other item I need is, or if I'll ever see it. I know that I need an energized crystal, but apparently I've never owned one. Don't know when I'll get one. So basically, this crafting menu just becomes this list of things that I'm not gonna make, or I have no idea what I'm gonna make. So there's no strategy in me trying to plan, like, oh, if I can find a crystal and get those boots, that'll really make a difference with the way I like to play. No, I had no idea. I don't even know what the jet boots will do. I think I have some jet boots. So right off the bat, you can see in a game that is basically all about menus, this menu has some problems. I don't know what I need to make this item. I don't know what the item will do when I get it. I have no clues as to where to find clues about the ingredients locations or the recipe. Okay. Can't make any gadgets. I know that I can make 2. But yeah, actually, up until this very moment, I forgot that I even had these available in battle. I never use them. Badges. Oh, to unlock secret classes. Yeah, see, that's another thing I completely forgot about. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I can make, but I don't regularly get to make stuff. It's just kind of weird. Usually when I get some item that's rare, I can use it for about 3 things. So I have to pick which thing I need to use it for, and then I don't get to do any of the other things. Yeah, so it's just like kind of frustrating. So this menu is just a place of disappointment. Let's look at the classes. A lot of classes. I think this is already more than tactics. And I think that there's even more to find. But obviously it gets pretty overwhelming, you know, like trying to remember who has what skills. I keep thinking, like I think this guy in particular, let's look at him. So Mender is like your basic white mage, your healer, right? I think this guy, yeah. So this guy, because of the way I've been learning skills, I keep forgetting to actually teach him revive. So this guy doesn't have a magical revive, even though he's, you know, his subclass is a healer. But because I just keep forgetting, this guy doesn't have a magical revive, so he has to use an item revive, which you can only use, I think, like 3 times per battle, unless you level up that item by crafting. But also the progression is so slow to learn skills that even though, okay, so like I have I have my units sorted by level, but I'm trying to level up my weaker units. So I'm going to reverse that. Okay, so these are my weaker units, including the main character. Even though I've spent basically like the last 2 weeks with these characters, they're still the bottom. Okay, because every time I do a story mission, of course I want to take my top characters, but then they level up a bunch, and these guys never do. This guy is really annoying because he learns, he doesn't level up like other characters. He learns abilities from enemies, but it's not like his leveling seems to be different. Like he doesn't get a whole lot of experience every battle, even though I use him quite a bit. But he's just kind of a black hole of experience where I'm like, can you please level up? Let's go. I want everybody, I want to progress. So now the game is a chore. Now the game's a chore. It's not a game anymore. It's just something that I'm doing because I don't want to give up on it. But I'm not really enjoying it anymore. So, you know, we'll see. And here's the thing is, I don't even know where the end game is. When I was playing Bloodstained, I managed to get to the fake final boss, which is basically the, I guess you could call it the villain on the cover. But when you beat him, you haven't really beat the game. There's other hidden parts of the castle, and if you discover those parts, you can get the true ending. And on top of that, you can actually find even more of the castle. There's a whole other castle to do. And that's the real ending. But I at least got to the boss of that game and beat him, and then I was like, all right, now I can put this game down for a while. I can come back to it later, you know, do a little bit here and there. This game doesn't have that option. When you put down this game to fuck around, it's really to grind. And even the grinding is becoming a chore. And see, now it's all coming back to me, like all the crap from Tactics and how flawed that game was, because it came out in 1997. Okay, so if they had kept making games like that, then they would have said like, oh yeah, you know what, there's too much grinding in this game. Let's cut that down a little bit. So like I said, when I started my like 2 months of grinding, I was here, and basically like 2 weeks ago I was able to move up here. If I try to go here, my lower end characters that I've been trying to use, they might get killed here. Okay? So they're like level 30 is the lowest level character I have. This area is only supposed to spawn characters up to level 22. But that's enough to put me in trouble. Okay. We're going to get to a battle, by the way, but I just want to talk about them first because I feel like I need to unwind. So AI in strategy games is probably the trickiest AI to do, right? Because the whole point of strategy games is to be challenged by the difficulty and overcoming it by becoming more and more proficient at the game. So you want to throw a fair amount of challenge at the player, because you're also throwing a fair amount of complexity at the player. So ideally, once the player has mastered that complexity, they should be able to succeed. Now, I will admit that I have a very single-minded approach to strategy games. I don't have a holistic approach. So for example, when this game started, I tried to go with the lowest amount of party members just to keep it manageable. And then what I realized later, again, when more tactics memories started coming back, was that no, actually I need to recruit a fair amount of party members so that I can have a wider set of abilities. Because even at this early stage, when I'm still like experimenting with what abilities are effective and in what situations, I want to see the most of it, right? Well, still, it turns out that because you are so limited in the number of abilities you can equip, there's still basically a small pool of abilities that you're actually going to use. Theoretically, that's incorrect, because theoretically you should be able to, have a full roster. I'm not sure how many characters I can have in this game. I know tactics limited you to, I think, 48. I'm guessing this game is similar. It might have unlimited. I was just gonna give this guy his skill points, but I think we'll use the opportunity as a talking point. So theoretically, you could have a guy that is, you have to pick a main skill, obviously, and then you pick your secondary skill set, but then you can set these like buffs, and they can be from any skill class, right? So here's how it works. You pick your main class, then you can earn 2 passive abilities that are automatically set here, and then you can choose your secondary skill set and also 2 passive skills, which can be from any class, as well as this final like reflective, that's your your response to being attacked skill, and that can also be from any class. But because you're so limited, theoretically a character will only be using up to 5 different classes, right? You have your main class, and then you can have a skill set from another class, and then a passive skill from a 3rd class, passive skill from a 4th class, and then your reflective skill from a 5th class. So theoretically, everyone should master 5 classes, right? And if you're patient enough, then even with that, you should be able to have a full roster with people from all sorts of different classes. But the way I play, and I think a reasonable way to play, I'm not sure if I'm in the minority or majority, to be honest. There's not a lot of people that talk about strategy games regularly. So I don't even know if I'm like an expert in strategy games or not. I seem to play a whole lot of them, but I don't know. Anywho, my approach is, well, if I know that Health Expert is a good skill because it raises your total hit points. Smart Casting is good because you'll hurt enemies with offensive spells but not hurt your allies, and you'll heal your allies and buff them but not your enemies. So that's pretty useful. And Absorb Mana is good because you start the battle with 0 magic points, and you have to build them up throughout the battle. But this is a good way to build them at your enemy's expense. So, as you can, and obviously healing is a good subset for any attacker. Or if you're a dedicated healer, may not. He's a dedicated healer, so he's good to have, some kind of offensive skill set as a secondary option. But I don't know. I guess like kind of stick to what works, and also because of the amount of time involved in learning these skills. So like, ugh, it's confusing even to like learn how to show you those. Okay, so Gadgeteer is one of those classes that these games have that is clearly not going to be anybody's main class. It just doesn't have as many options to use. I mean, you could probably make it work, but it has this very useful skill here where you start the battle with 15 magic points instead of 0. That's a game changer for any spellcaster. But you have to grind this class, and you have to do it with every character that you want to have this skill in order to get it. So that's a big time commitment. As you can see, I haven't done it with all my characters. Probably not even most. This is my main character, and she hasn't even mastered more than one class because it took me a while to get like a system down. So again, man, I'm trying not to sound too like beaten down, but that's kind of how I feel. Supposed to be having fun. It's a game, right? And I guess I'll show you, I don't know if I have really a point to make with this guy, but I'll just show you how the skills work. So this guy is a ranger. That's his main skill set. He gets experience points. And then I can cash those points in to learn these skills. Okay, so actually right now I'm working towards this last one because multi-shot is not that great. You can do damage over an area, but that's not as useful at this point as doing this really high damage and high accuracy attack. So that's my priority, right? Yeah, so I mean, you just kind of have to manage that thing. But okay, so that'll earn me that skill for this character. But every other character I might be interested in having that skill, I gotta come here and grind out this ranger class. And it's a lot of the same, right? And the enemy AI, I think we can probably get into a battle. AI, hasn't evolved a whole lot. So the battles are kind of like, what to expect, and especially like if the grinding is set up in such a way where like I can grind here because the enemies are low enough level for my low level characters, but I can't grind here because they're too tough and I might get killed. It's more efficient to grind at a spot where I know I can win. So you see a lot of the same enemies a lot of the time. And you see a lot of the same tactics. I guess let's get into it. Okay, so like this battle I haven't done before. This is totally new. I don't really know what to expect. Probably a mix of like human and these moth people that are in this area. And I guess I'm trying to get into the temple, so I'll probably be on some kind of like temple grounds or something. It's a story mission, so it should be tough. And again, I am playing on a higher difficulty, so you could argue that I could make this all go away, because I can change the difficulty mid game. And this has really made me think that I'm going to rethink whether I ever play a game on anything other than normal. I rarely do go above normal for a first playthrough. And honestly, I can't think of a time when I really was happy with that decision. It's not always tied to difficulty, though. Last of Us is a game that stands out. I don't know why I decided to play that game on difficult or hard, whatever is above the middle difficulty. And I ended up hating that game, but not because of the combat or the difficulty. Of course, it doesn't really tell you what difficulty means. What is difficult? Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Before we have it, let's just get into this battle. Alright, first of all, let me organize my troops. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to take my lower level units. I'm going to take my high level units. Although, you know what? Let's grind out one last mission. How about that? Since the main character is in this group, let's get her leveled up, and I can kind of show you some of the combat. Let's take... See, even this area has been giving me some trouble, like 11 to 17. Again, my lowest level unit is 30. So almost double supposedly the highest level unit here. Okay, I'll explain what that was jumping around in just a second. Let me just place my units. Okay, here's one thing right off the bat that we can take away from this game. First of all, okay, you've got these like floating platforms as arenas, right? Okay, it's kind of a genre convention. I'm sure if you're making a game, you don't really want to spend your time making a bunch of assets that are never going to matter. So yeah, let's just have the floating island, okay? But here's the thing. This is a strategy game, and I'm not knocking just this game. A lot of strategy games do this. This is a strategy game. Positioning your units is a strategy. So you would think you would incorporate positioning, especially at the beginning of the battle, a little more into the game, right? Instead, you're married to these units. Now, thank God, at least this game doesn't do what Tactics did, where they would make you choose where you're going to position your units in this like blank slate that didn't even show the actual battle arena. And then you had to confirm that choice and then load into the actual map to see what your actual starting position worked out to. Sometimes two characters that were right next to each other turned out like were separated by something. It was terrible. This game at least doesn't do that. But I only have 6 squares in the entire map to put units in. So I can never be like, hey guy, like this guy can walk really far compared to the rest of my units, right? So I can never be like, hey guy, actually, why don't we put you like over here? And you just spawn in the grass, and then so the enemy will not know whether you exist or not. Did I not bring in a unit, or do I have a hidden unit? And you'll actually be hiding over here in the grass, and then you'll pop up and surround one of these guys, right? Obviously, the name of the game in strategy games in general is surround one unit, isolate them, whittle down their HP, and then move on to the next, right? We'll see how this plays out. Okay. Now keep in mind, I am also like handicapping myself because since I'm grinding these units, they don't really have a great loadout, actually. Let's go more towards this guy. Wait, what? Oh. God, even after a full week into playing this game, there's so many buttons. Okay. Now notice, again, it's not... Look how far away all the enemies are, right? So I don't even have... I guess it's player choice where I want to go, but also, like, let's fucking get started, man. Like, it's gonna take forever to kill all you guys. Let's go. Meanwhile, all my units are clumped up together, which means there's no real point in, like, spreading out. It's better to just basically stay together, and then we can all focus on an enemy. So there's no real, like, positioning. I mean, sure, I can branch out from here, but I don't know. I don't see the point in doing that, to be honest. Now, obviously, that changes as your classes do improve, and you do get access to, like, higher level abilities and such, but there's not really a ton of opportunity here. So I have to spend this whole first turn just moving. I mean, I don't have any, like, buffing classes, really. So I could do that. Yeah, these are all debuffs so far. This guy will eventually learn some buffs, I think. But I don't know about other people. Like, status buffs are not really my go-to strategy in games. Like, I'm more of a meat and potatoes guy. I want to hit people with a sword. Obviously, I appreciate other skills to, like, round out the game, but I'm never gonna fall in love with a game where I have to basically be like, at the start of a battle, hey you, regenerate, go faster, resist poison, like all this crap. Like, I just kind of want to get with the battle. You can actually take away some of the numbers of battles and just give me less stuff to worry about. Alright, so luckily this guy came over here and attacked me. Let's see. Well, first of all, let's get a readout. So he's got 173 hit points. So I can probably take care of this guy. They were surprisingly not clumped up. Recently, when I've been playing this level, they're all, like, really clamped up, and there's a bunch of healers. So I got kind of a different loadout this time. Usually I'm getting a bunch of humans, and there's several classes there that can just, like, mass heal. So, yeah, I'm trying to use my skills so I can level up these classes. Yeah, so it's not really going to happen here. But I had a really long run, like most of yesterday. About half the day I spent grinding on this map, and I might have leveled past it, but I was essentially just coming across these guys where, like, every turn I could, like, barely have one, maybe two or three characters attack an enemy, and let's say maybe do 200 hit points and damage, and then, like, all his friends would just come through and heal him. And I mean, it was almost like comical how it was happening. I, like, could not do damage to enemies, so I had to just get, like, really severe and, like, really focus down enemies. And it just became totally not fun. And at that point, I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my time, my life? Like, it was so bad that it became, like, almost like philosophical. I was like, what is the nature of existence if I'm playing this fucking grindy ass game? So rather than give up on the game, I decided to do this stream and just bitch about it. Because I'm really astounded and do not fully comprehend what is going on in the minds of game developers today, because this just seems to be my experience, is that I have a shitload of games to play. Whereas back in the day, when you were on Nintendo, when you were on PlayStation, even like the PlayStation 2 days, there weren't really that many games coming out all the time, and they still had to come out. They had to be published, printed on discs, sent to stores, and then you had to go to the store and get it and make the commitment. And you probably weren't. I'll put it this way: I don't remember buying ever 2 games outside of the PlayStation 2 launch. I think that was the only time I bought 2 games. They were expensive. I also, didn't have a whole lot of my own money back then. So it was just harder, but also there was less of it. And now it's so easy to buy a game, download it, boom, you're playing. And I don't think developers have caught on to that. In fact, they seem to be going in the opposite direction and seem obsessed with making very long games all the time. Which is actually, I think I'm going to end up still waiting for a sale regardless, but Resident Evil 3 just came out, and a lot of people are criticizing how short it is, and actually that's made me want to play it more than anything, because 5 hours seems to me about the perfect amount of time. Maybe 7 hours would have been better. But, mileage varies between players. But that sounds so perfect. Like, in a year where I've completed Red Dead Redemption 2 several months ago. I think that was in, like, August? Like, a year after I bought that fucking game, I finally finished it. Witcher 3, which was actually... well, I think it's about the same as Red Dead, but I'd never played the Witcher games before, so I didn't feel the same, I guess, like, expectation from the IP. that I did for Red Dead, and I guess kind of an obligation to play it even. Witcher 3 I just played because it came out, I heard the name. Kind of, basically the reason I played Red Dead 1. It was like, a bunch of people were talking about it. I really didn't know much about the game, so I just played it. And that game has some flaws, but it had some really, really nice highs, too. Red Dead did as well, but I think, oh man, that game just felt like a grind, especially that epilogue. So now I have the DLC to do in Witcher, but I actually feel like going back to it. I don't think if DLC came out for Red Dead 2, I don't think I would play it. What else? I played Control, which wasn't that long a game, but was too long for what Control was. Definitely wore out its welcome. Was really disappointing in the end. Anyway, I've been finishing a lot of games. It's crazy to me, and a lot of older games too. I've been going back and replaying stuff on my PS3, including also like some PS2 games. I played through San Andreas this year on PS4. So completing a lot of long games, but also like older games where you can kind of like appreciate the charm, and sometimes you just kind of grit your teeth and are like, alright, isn't this a beloved game that I love? So what's crazy to me about this game and Bloodstained is that it seems almost irresponsible that somebody would make this game with this amount of grinding and length nowadays and be like, yeah, this is fine. This is the direction we need to be going in. We should not like rethink certain aspects of this genre and improve them. We need to have basically as close to a carbon copy of the originals as possible, including the game length and all the horrible grinding and the parts that you wish you could forget about those games. That to me is crazy. No dark magic. I think that's another deficiency in this loadout, is I don't have any dark magic users. Like the way you progress Bloodstained to basically the secret bosses and secret areas of the game took me like 4 months to find it because I didn't want to look at a guide. But also I was like, surely this game has a map, a dynamic map. Surely if I just cover every square inch of the map, I'll just find it. And I was so close to using a guide. I'm so glad I didn't, because I did eventually find it, and I was like, man, God, I was like kind of getting down on myself. I was like, man, I'm getting old. I don't know how to play games anymore. Like, I'm out of step with how things work. And then it turned out it was fucking ridiculous, because what I had to do was go to a very specific corner of the map and look up at the ceiling, which you can barely see. I mean, it's there, it's visible if you're on the ground. It is visible, but it's not like entirely visible. Like, you don't get a whole tile of the ceiling. And do the reverse gravity skill there, and then do a little bit more searching around to find an item, which then gives me the opportunity to keep searching for more things. And I did. I beat the game, but the amount of obnoxiousness was not welcome. And then I had to remind myself, like, oh yeah, I fucking like beat Demon Souls. I've beat Dark Souls, and Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne. I beat all those games and all those bosses, and Sekiro, and I've beaten all sorts of games. I mean, I'm not a fucking slouch. It's just bad game design. It's bad game design to hold up the progression of the story so much and for so long that I've actually forgotten parts of the story. That's not good. Like, if I play a game dedicatedly for a week, I should be pretty close to clearing it, right? Or if it's like a long game, then I should have made reasonable progress. I think a week of dedicated playing is, I can expect reasonable progress. And unless I look at a guide, I can only guess, but I think I'm only about a third through this game. That's not good. That's not good. I have characters in my party that I think I've never used in a story mission because they're just never the right level, you know? Whew. So, I mean, that's pretty rambly, I'll give you that. I'm just kind of going off. But I think that's what's happening with this game. I mean, the game design has just kind of shocked me into confusion, to be honest. See, like this. Okay, so this enemy is strong against physical attacks. I get it. This guy is a fucking level 31 archer. Ranger, right? The ranger is an archer. I just want to kill this guy. But I can't. Because I'm only going to do 26 hit points of damage. Even with 100% chance. I guess maybe I could get a critical. Or inflict whatever that is. Bleed. Can't fucking remember now. So this fucking enemy is going to have one fucking hit point. Instead of just being wiped off the map. This one does less damage. Okay, I have one ability that will do 2 extra points of damage, giving me 1 whole hit point to play around with. Thank God it hit. It just makes it annoying to have to go into the menu and discover that. And it's just like, dude, I just want to kill these low-level enemies. How long have we been at this? I mean, even with me talking, it's taking quite a bit of time. Still my best ability. See, here's the thing. Alright, let's do it. Keep an eye on the Bizarro character. He got 1 experience point for that. I don't get it. Don't get it. So I don't know. I feel like lately, um, one of the main things that's like dragging down games for me is length. To be honest, don't really know what to do about it. Because it's not. I mean, of all the things that you can whine about in gaming, that is just the last thing anybody's gonna listen to. But I do feel pretty strongly about it. I think too many games are just way too long. We're like certainly the last 10 minutes of most games could have disappeared. I have to use her skills. Yep. Um, like the epilogue in Red Dead was bizarre to me. Um, I couldn't fathom why they put that in there. It should have been something that was like at most an hour and a half of gameplay. It should have been like Marston's already the farmer. All of a sudden, Sadie turns up. They haven't seen each other forever. She knows where Micah is. You go kill him. She dies. That's when you get picked up by what's his face, and that's why you have to do everything you did in Red Dead is because you went and took revenge for somebody. You made the mistake. That should have been the epilogue of Red Dead. Instead, it was that mess. It was insane to me. I thought Witcher 3 that is, was a little too long, but the quality of the story just maintains such a high value throughout the entire game that even at the end when I was like kind of tired of the characters and not really that invested in the politics and story and fantasy aspects, I guess, of the game, I was still like totally fine to watch every cutscene. No problem. Oh wait, no. This guy. That's right, I'm gonna use my special skill for this guy to make 30 points. Just disappear from his health bar. And Red Dead had a great story too, but you know, parts of it were a little overdone for me. So I wasn't as forgiving. But certainly a game like this, where the story is so by the numbers, you would want to keep people engaged. And I would think when the grinding first started to rear its head, I was kind of thinking like, well, they've added little touches to parts of the game that make it better. Maybe there will be some story or mechanic in the game somewhere that will kind of bring the grinding into focus, right? I thought maybe one of these times that I'll be on this arena for the 50th time, some special character will appear or something. I don't know. I was just making stuff up. But yeah, it never happened. It is still basically just Final Fantasy Tactics. Very much so. And I guess that's kind of where the monkey's paw aspect comes in, because it's like, careful what you wish for. thought I wanted Final Fantasy Tactics. I'm sure a lot of people also thought the same thing. Turns out what I wanted was for Final Fantasy Tactics to have kept being a franchise over the years and by now have progressed into something that I still really like. I would say even like Valkyria Chronicles, which has a lot of the same pitfalls as this game, at least brings the 3D aspect and the spectacle to the genre, right? And it even with those stilted like back and forth cutscenes, it's still better than what you get here. You know, didn't really fall in love with those characters, or I'm talking about Valkyria Chronicles 4 more recently, which I've kind of put down also. Still installed, but ugh. My main point for making this whole video is I've gotten to the point where the next time I get excited about a game, a strategy game that is, I'm gonna have to curb my enthusiasm actually and wait for it to release and look at reviews, because I can't do this again. I can't let nostalgia and desire for like mechanics to make me play through another game that makes me want to put a gun in my mouth. Okay? Not exaggerating. I wish I was. Especially when even a game like XCOM, which has, again, its own pitfalls and problems, like I would take XCOM 1 or 2 over this any day. If I had to go to a desert island with only one strategy game, easily XCOM. Like, it's just less clunky, it feels more modern, doesn't have a lot of stuff that has been rehashed. Even over like Valkyria Chronicles. Yeah. Oh, hey, you can finally learn Revive. Awesome. It would not be this game. That's what I'm saying. And so I don't really want to put myself through this again. Mystic Shield. So that's what all those enemies have. That's another thing, is this game, the enemies have a lot of really annoying skills that causes you to like waste the whole turn. Like when you've already wasted like 3 turns just fucking making your way across the map to them. And then you get there and you're like, oh, I can hit this guy and it's 100%, but I'm not going to do any damage because he has Mystic Shield. Oh, okay. There's a lot of that in this game. I'm like, it's already a $40 game, so why don't you, and you know, it's an indie studio, less resources, why don't you make less of the game? Streamline the game. Of course, there is that danger, and I understand it. Oh, actually mastered this guy, class. There's always that danger that you're going to make something and improve on the formula, and people are going to be like, oh, well, it's not like the old days. I understand that. But surely that's better than making a game that after 60 hours makes me like really question like why I bought it, if I really want to continue, if I ever want to touch the genre again, it makes me want to like look up the developers and make sure that I don't inadvertently play one of their games without looking at reviews. That's a lot. That's quite a lot. Yeah. So anyway, I think I've rambled enough, to be honest. Vampire. Denizens of the shadows, vampires are imbued with unnatural charm and a lust for blood. Bat form, execute. And there's a werewolf. I'd seen that before. Interesting. Vessel. See, okay, so like this guy, I want to try out some of these new classes, right? But I got to start from zero. And then I'm like, well, I have these other classes that I've made some progress in. Maybe I should spend my time with as a mender, surely. I could be a mender, or I could be an assassin. See, assassin sounds fun. But I can use a dagger or a bow. I think assassin sounds pretty cool. I think I'll go with assassin. But it's a new class, so here we go. Let's set my abilities. Okay, so I got I just have these two optional buffs. And what will I learn as an assassin? Dispel powder. Sabotage. Character exchanges positions on the map with the target, ignores protect status, and cannot be evaded. It bypasses all counter abilities. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. Sleep powder. Cautious step. Character is immune to traps as well as to root and slow. Okay. Collect bounty, deals 0.8 physical damage. Target and yields are a rare component if the character lands a killing blow on a human target. If the target is defeated by this ability, it cannot be raised for the rest of the encounter. On a killing blow, rebirth will be ignored. Boss enemies are immune to being collected. That seems pretty useful. So, I mean, that's the other thing is like, technically, like all the classes are viable, but there's clearly like end game classes. All right, fair enough. Mirage. Okay, I've seen a lot of enemies use this. Nice that I can finally have access to some of the skills I've been seeing. Deals 2.8 physical damage to the target from a distance and has a chance of inflicting poison, bleed, and blind. Sounds very useful. I think I'm going to be very happy with this class. Dual wield. The character can equip 2 weapons or 2 shields at the same time when using skills. The attack granted by the second weapon will not apply. Okay. So definitely sticking with that. But see, now this character is kind of nerfed. Because technically he's my highest level character, 33. But now because he's learning this new class, it's probably not a good idea to take him into a story mission. So I'll probably have to come back and either change his class or change my roster. Yeah. Sounds about right. See if I can craft anything new. I can craft 2 new things. What are they? Impala boots. Throwing glove. Fire shield. Okay, I have all those. I don't think I need anymore. I guess I'll go with the Impala boots, even though I'm not using any of the now 8 that I have. At least I don't think I am. Yay, I crafted something. Let's sort my units again. And reverse it so that I know who's on the bottom. It's pretty much these guys. I don't know how my main character got so low, but yeah, it's pretty much been these guys the whole game. Oh, actually, this is one of my newer recruits. I'm surprised she's up here. But yeah, these two are like story characters. So probably gonna try to bring them along. This guy's a story character, but he's always around the bottom, so I actually haven't used him. This guy wasn't available for a few missions, which is annoying because I expected him to be there and outfitted him to be there. Um, so yeah, these little mind games that the game plays with you, I think would be more charming if they were like better thought out and better executed, or just if the game was shorter. If the game was shorter, I wouldn't be tired of it. I think 60 hours is enough time to beat a game. You know what? Before I go, let's look at some options. Oh, here's a minor inconvenience. I don't really like auto-saving in games. In this game, you can't turn it off. So every time I fight a battle, I gotta come in here and delete this autosave file. I don't know why. I just like manually saving. But since this game has this fucked up thing, I don't even have the 2 slots I would normally have. Like in XCOM, I usually have 2 save slots. Let's see. Let's look at gameplay. Okay. Here's one thing I appreciate about this game. It is trying to throw a lot of options at the player, and maybe I'm just too stupid or too lazy to set this correctly, right? Okay, so this will probably make life a lot less annoying. We'll just speed up all these animations. Tutorial hints. I think I can turn that to no. Keep page when it's set to no. In combat, when showing the information panel for a different character, the selected information page will reset to the default one every time. When set to yes, it will remember the current selected page. Default is no. Okay, I feel like an attorney now that I've read and comprehended that. Enable left stick. Allows the left stick to be used in map movements as well as the directional buttons. Most people didn't enjoy using the left stick as much, so we disabled it to encourage directional button use. But if you really want to use it, okay. Use type A. Yeah. Okay, so there's the difficulty settings. Help compendium. Yeah, I think I've done this. So actually, let's do this. I'm gonna save. I was hoping that that I'd be able to change the difficulty. I thought I could. I guess not. Mid-game. So that's it for this playthrough. I got to play it through in veteran. But that's the choice I made. I guess I could have turned back sooner. I think at this point I would be, if I want to see the ending of the game, I would just grind out whatever is necessary on this playthrough. But let's quit the title and options. Let's go to new game. Okay, this is what made me play in veteran, actually. Oh, there's more difficulty levels. Custom. Okay, so you can do custom. I really appreciate this, by the way, and this might be something I have to like really take a look at before I make my mind up about this game, because I guess theoretically I could have a much better playthrough. AP. Okay, let's look at this. Casual, all the way at the bottom. When a character falls in combat, they will earn less AP at the end of battle. Falling multiple times will further reduce that amount. This is a good alternative to the regular injury system if you really don't want to ever bench anyone. Okay. No. There are no penalties when a character falls in combat. This is not recommended unless you feel things are just too hard. Okay. Default. This is the default injury system. When a character falls in combat, they will have a penalty to all their stats until they rest for a full battle. By the way, this does not apply to that one weird bug character, which is maybe the only good thing about him so far. Resting means you won't deploy them during an encounter. This setting encourages the player to create a few substitute units. A few, yeah, quite a few. Just for grinding, because you still want to take your highest level units into story battles. Permanent. Injuries are permanent and will never heal. Each injury will give the character 5% less to a random stat. This is only recommended if you want a greater challenge. That's crazy. Permadeath. Injuries are permanent and granted for 5% to a random stat. Once a character has gotten 5 injuries, they will be unable to participate in combat anymore. Story characters, other than the main character, are not exempt from this. Most people should probably not use this option. Okay, that's interesting because I guess I can not take story characters into battle with me after the first battle if I just grind out their deaths and they get 5 injuries. Okay. AP Malice. Oh, so this went from custom to casual. Random numbers, weighted. The game will use a randomizing system that's more in the player's favor. Okay. This game uses simple 1 to 100 rolls, just sort of rolling a D100, whatever that means, dice. This is roughly as true of a random system as you can get in a video game. Enemies level scaling. This is the recommended setting. Each map has a minimum and maximum level range for enemies, so they will try to keep up with your level. But if you're struggling, you could raise your level to pass theirs and thus overpower your foes. Okay. This is like grinding built into the game with this setting, basically. Max up. Each map has a minimum and maximum level range for enemies, but the maximum range is increased by 33%, so it'll be harder for you to pass your level. This is a good option if you tend to run a lot of optional battles and want to make sure the enemies have a chance to keep up with you. No max. Each map has a minimum level for enemies, but they will always scale with your level with no maximum. This is a good option if you want to level as much as you want and never worry about the enemies being too low level. But it means you can't ever overpower them with raw levels either. Raw stats scale. Okay, so that was at default. Negative 25% stats. Raw stat scaling. Enemies will have negative 25% to their stats. Attack, mind, defend, resistance. This should make things quite a bit easier. Okay. Negative 10 stats, negative 5 stats. Default. Enemies will have the stats a character of their level would normally have. For the most part, these are the same stats you would have if you'd leveled your character in their current class almost exclusively. Okay. Wow. Whee, yikes. Negative 50 stats. Or no, plus 50, but only negative 25. Interesting. Interesting. Enemies gear. Less. Enemies will have one less piece gear than normal on average. This should make things fairly easier while being more randomized, simply dropping their stats by a set amount. Yikes. Full. Okay. Enemies' passives counter. Enemies will have a chance of spawning without passives or counters, even if they are high enough level. Enemies will always spawn with passives or counters if their level is high enough. Enemies use revive. Oh god, this is tough. Okay, so what I'm playing on is veteran, which means everything is set to default. Enemies use items. Enemies will have a good chance of making use of items when they need them. Yep. And they're usually much higher levels than mine. So like at the moment, the stone that I can throw does 50 hit points of damage to an enemy, while theirs does something like 80. Enemies have items. Enemies will have access to a small stockpile of items. In general, they will have less than you, but might have access to higher tiers faster than you. Yep. If you're leveling faster than normal, this is the recommended option. Why? I would not recommend that. Enemies will sometimes revive other fallen enemies. They have decreasing odds of doing so the more often a target has died. They have a low maximum amount of times they can do this per battle. Let's see what morons play on. Enemies will sometimes revive other fallen enemies. They have decreasing odds of doing so the more often a target has died. They have a high maximum number of times they can do this per battle. This could lead to significantly lengthier battles if you're not careful. Oh yeah, well the default setting also leads to significantly difficult, lengthier battles. Okay, so I am glad that we came to look at that. Because I can see now that my playthrough, which is now sitting at 70 hours, at scene 29. Okay, I'm glad I saw that too, because now I can look up how many scenes are in the game without having to look up a full story tutorial and seeing spoilers for a story that's not very interesting. Okay, so I've been playing the game on a pretty hard set of options. Kind of makes me want to just grind out the fucking story almost, but 69 hours, I don't think I can give that up. Well, I have a choice to make actually. I could see the ending of the game on a very, very easy difficulty and just blast through it. Or depending on how many scenes are left in the game, I might just tough out this playthrough. But yeah, this is gonna like seriously affect the game, and I think that I've still made a pretty strong case for this game's pitfalls. Now that I've seen those options, I am factually, objectively incorrect about the game, just being rushed to be a carbon copy of even the flaws of tactics. God damn it, I might have to install Bloodstained again just to look at the options. But yeah, still, with the story being what it is, I think this game makes the tougher difficulty pretty hard to swallow. So I still think I've made a pretty strong case for that. Anywho, I'll call the stream there. But thanks for joining me. Let me know what you think about everything I've said. Like I mentioned a little earlier, not a lot of people like really talk about strategy games all that much, and they're all so different that it kind of makes it hard to have a lot of consistency. But although they share some similarities, so any chance I get to talk about strategy RPGs, especially strategy JRPGs, not Japanese strategy games. But then again, like I said, XCOM is probably my all-time favorite, just because of like how fun it is to actually play the battles. So yeah, any chance I get to talk about it, I'd love to hear people's opinion on it. So leave me a comment below if you feel like it. Bye.